Chain Drug Review and Mass Market Retailers Video Forum. Brought to you by the Emerson Group.
Hello, everyone. I'm Jeffrey Wolt, Editor-in-Chief of Chain Drug Review and Mass Market Retailers. Welcome to our video forum. Today, we're going to bring you the second part of our conversation with Kearney's Todd Huseby. Todd is a partner in the consulting firm and head of its consumer healthcare practice. I began by asking Todd about his view of the large healthcare ecosystems which are emerging and their impact.
We've been seeing sort of the blurring of the lines across a lot of different healthcare segments. So we do see it. And so, United Health has a pretty good spectrum from payers to primary care to specialists, hospital services, managed care teams, traditional and obviously PBM. Kaiser Permanente has all of that. CVS has most of that. And what they've been building at CVS Health. Walgreens Boots Alliance does not yet have that, but I think they have the pockets. And then if you could imagine that there could be transactions or partnerships in order to fill in the rest of the ecosystem. And you triggered this question, referencing Amazon, and Amazon also has a number of assets here. They're starting from a different spot, but they're starting to fill out that continuum as well, through partnerships as well as their big acquisitions.
Mm-hmm. So you're confident that the digital players will have a role to play in healthcare going forward? Yeah.
Look, I think it's yes, and I think it's an advantageous place to start this next chapter in healthcare. They can't do it only digitally. Healthcare is a physical experience at the end of the day, but there's a lot of it in a world where there's a lot of inefficiency in healthcare, and there's a lot of capital tied up. There's a lot of benefits to be delivered from a digital first company, starting there and then building healthcare solutions from there.
Everyone we've talked about is a big company with, as you say, deep pockets and able to invest in business. Where is this going to leave everybody else in the pharmacy business after you get past the top three, really? I would say the top three.
There are fewer and fewer regional brick-and-mortar pharmacies over time, but there's a lot of excellent pharmacies in regional grocers who I think are doing a lot on the innovation side with healthcare services, and they've got great relationships with their customers. I think they're doing, in some cases, among the most notable jobs for building that relationship between pharmacist and patient. So parts of it, I think, Jeff, will persist well, and I think they have some advantages on things like real estate and things of that sort that give them a leg up in some regard. There's also sources of innovation. I really do like some of the more niche-y pharmacies, if you will, Hims, Hers. By focusing, even I don't want to go too much into like Mark Cuban, but anything that has a niche brand or an iconic brand, it's interesting for me to see how you can build a pharmacy business based on a singular need. The back end can be all the same, but your front end marketing can be very direct and segmented and targeted. Build a base and grow it, and do it from a starting point that's an efficient platform. I think there are great sources of innovation there. But in that creative destruction, Jeff, I think there are going to be parts of our traditional pharmacy landscape that just have a hard time making the economics work going forward using the older models.
What do you think of the announcement at Rite Aid, Hayward Donegan leaving?
Let me maybe think about Rite Aid as one of the great brands that we have in in pharmacy in America for consumers. But I would say when the government decided that only half of it could exist, I think that really put a challenge on that remaining half of Rite Aid to compete effectively against all the other players and new entrants that were entering the market. They are strong in some of those markets where they exist, but there's a lot of cost, associated with running that business, and leaving half of a company that had existed to do that is not, I think the way to, advantage them. And so I think they you can see it in their share price. They struggle in order to be able to compete.
And certainly with the debt load they still carry, it'll be a tall order for anyone coming into that job of CEO.
Yeah, that's right. I think they're, the debt load is high there. The debt to equity ratio, as I look at it, is, enormously higher than any of their competitors. So they're going to have to continue to, pay that or refinance it. But it's a continuing drag on earnings and just operating cash flows in order to be able to, finance off that.
Todd, you did mention supermarket pharmacy.
Yes.
And I'm wondering what you think of the food as medicine idea that Kroger and others are beginning to push so much.
Yeah, I really like the food as medicine strategy for some players in the market, for those who are in food. Colleen Lindholtz has been the most vocal on this one. And she does, I think, a really compelling job speaking for Kroger Health on this topic. Things I really like about it, I think for the generally healthy part of the population, I think this is a message that can resonate. I think it can also be really helpful for people trying to get to better health. I don't think it gets in the way of the need for people who are not the generally healthy to simply do their part to take their meds and adhere to their medical needs and their therapies. But I like it. I think it's really good for any of the grocers or mass retailers. I don't think changing eating habits is easy. That's not something that most people have a ton of success in. But where you can, or when it's absolutely necessary for one to do that, I think it's great for the grocers to be super relevant on a food as medicine strategy. I think this is also a place where there's opportunity for some innovation. So, for example, I don't currently see, Jeff, for payers, a lot of offerings where they're offering, say, healthy food supplemental benefits. But I don't think it's crazy to say somewhere down the road in, say, the Medicare Advantage space, for payers to be able to attract new members, to be offering some sort of benefit on healthy food. And could that be a way of being able to not only benefit the payers, but also be able to benefit certain partners they might have on the grocery side if they had developed solutions that way?
Do you see payers beginning to take a more holistic view of the patient? I mean,
where I've been seeing it mostly is on the Medicare Advantage side. So once they have the patient for a longer stretch of time, rather than in the commercial market where they may be switching more and more. But even there, I think we're seeing some. So I don't want to dismiss it. But as they compete for lives in Medicare Advantage, I think they are looking for very consumer-oriented supplemental benefits with brand names that consumers know, that can attract new members, and if it can be part of improving the health and wellness, at least for some members, I think they are hopeful, willing to entertain discussions on, is this win-win?
How much progress are payers and providers making in moving from the fee-for-service or the fee-for-prescription dispense to fee-for-service model, and actually taking on shared risk?
I think so. I think value-based care is clearly something that's on the rise. It has been for several years. We've seen it in some of our analyses that it does continue to grow. But I would say if I think about from the pharmacy perspective, Jeff, I don't think the nut's been cracked on that one yet by any stretch. There's still a lot of experimentation, and I think attempts to find the solutions that payers would agree are worth reimbursing at a higher rate as risk is shared. But I'm not seeing yet the breakthroughs that are part of that. But I think this is why, integrated care, back to an earlier question, has some potential, because the more you can aggregate the risk and be able to manage the risk across different parts of the patient's life, then the more, you should be willing to, find solutions there and accept solutions on where pharmacists on the front line can be adding a lot of value and pay for that.
Mm-hmm. And one final question for you, Todd. How do you view government and its view toward pharmacy and healthcare? Do you expect government to play a role, a positive role in reshaping healthcare, or is this going to be something we're going to see private sector companies work out?
I think the experience over the last few years where chain pharmacies really did, come to, save a lot of lives and be an important part of Americans' vaccination. So many of them. I mean, we've all heard the enormous statistics, over 80%, I think, at this point in terms of all of the vaccinations delivered. It would be smart. I'm of the opinion that it would be smart for regulators to expand scope of service in chain drugstores and make good use of these very well-educated pharmacists, that are so accessible to Americans. But I recognize at the same time that that's a hard thing to get to steady state. But I'm hopeful and optimistic, and I think that would be a big win for making healthcare more equal, more accessible, and hopefully better care offered to more Americans.
Let's hope we get there soon. We appreciate your insights, Todd. Always great to talk with you.
Thanks, Jeff. You too. Take care.